in which every president is confirmed to be president. It is the finishing of the counting of votes from the Electoral College and what we call a certification that the election the previous November has been certified as declared. Normally, it was a pretty perfunctory process that no one had paid attention to. Now, it is one of the most famous or infamous days in U.S. history.
And I saw thousands of people here, but you don't see hundreds of thousands of people behind you because they don't want to show that.
January 6th, President Trump held a speech outside of the White House near the South Lawn. And a lot of those Americans who came to that speech ultimately walked down to the Capitol. And unfortunately, a few of them got out of hand. January 6th would set into motion a hurricane of injustice and misinformation from the deep state to permanently destroy not only Donald Trump, but every single person who had ever supported him. There are definitely individuals who committed crimes on January 6th that need to be prosecuted and punished accordingly. But there are way more individuals who are being subjected to the deep state's two-tier system of justice and falsely being labeled domestic terrorists. The deep state had finally succeeded in removing Donald Trump from the White House and aimed to keep him from ever coming back. The plan would be to prevent him from running for office, and this is where the insurrection narrative would begin.
But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us. From me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace.
In addition to building the case that Donald Trump had incited an insurrection on January 6th, the FBI would put an operation in play that would push the limits of even their corrupt lack of standards. We actually now know, thanks to brave whistleblowers at the FBI, that FBI field offices across the country had their unrelated cases seized by the Washington Headquarters Division and reclassified as January 6th domestic terrorism cases. This allowed Chris Wray to falsely testify before Congress that domestic terrorism was on the rise, providing the mainstream media and the deep state operatives with the narrative they needed to portray Donald Trump as the greatest threat to democracy.
I was appalled, like you, at the violence and destruction that we saw that day. I was appalled that you, our country's elected leaders, were victimized right here in these very halls. That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple. It's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
The FBI would use this domestic terrorism narrative to round up Trump supporters present at the Capitol on that day. Even more disturbing, they started targeting Trump supporters who weren't present, labeling them domestic terrorists based on their vote. Eventually, the truth emerged. Donald Trump did not incite a riot or attempt a government takeover. Despite this, government officials continued to punish his supporters regardless of political affiliation. The FBI's ability to target and arrest citizens based on their beliefs should alarm every person in this country.
Former President Donald Trump tonight declared not guilty of the impeachment charge he incited insurrection at the Capitol.